Good morning. It's a lovely morning to be here. Sometimes people ask me, how do you come up with your topics? Where do you get the ideas from? Sometimes they're something I've read or something that comes to mind or an event that's going on in the world. This topic came, interestingly enough, from an email that someone sent me. They had been looking at our daughter's website. She's a watercolor artist. And on this particular blog, someone had taken photographs of our daughter Sandra as she was painting. It was kind of a time sequence. So you started with a blank piece of paper and little pieces appeared as she was moving like this. And what this lady noticed was that she left a white space in the middle. And she just left the white space there and kept doing all kinds of stuff around it. And then gradually, the white space, of course, became something. And what it became in this painting was what Sandra called falling water. It wasn't actually a waterfall of that kind, but it was the ocean with rocks and water, every once in a while coming and falling over a particular rock. And this lady said this was very interesting to her because she said, you leave something to be nothing, and then it suddenly becomes something. And I thought then of another painting, one of my favorites of hers, which is almost the absolute reverse. This painting, the white space is a frame, almost. There is docks, and so this is a painting of a boat coming in from the ocean. The docks and all kinds of things around it. But then there is the whiteness of the dawn shining on the ocean, and in the middle is just a little boat coming in, and she titled it Home for Breakfast. And so in this instance, the white space was a frame for a completed event. The man had got his catch and was coming home for breakfast. And I took these ideas and created what for myself was a wonderful metaphor about spirit, about life. In printing, which my husband and I were in many years ago, we owned a little printing company, white space was a very valuable commodity, which many people didn't appreciate or understand. In many cases, people think if you've got a piece of white space, you should put something in it. You should fill it up. Which means for most people that there is so much stuff on the paper that you can't find what you're looking for. You need space. And the commodity of white space is really valuable to make what you want to talk about jump out, or the picture that you want to show, to make it jump out. In other words, that empty space is not full of nothing. It is absolutely full of potential. And that's the metaphor I want to use. The idea that space, something that appears to have nothing, is pure potential. And it's what I call love in waiting. For me, a space, a beautiful, clear space, in my mind and consciousness, someplace in my life, is a space that is waiting for something to happen. And what is in that space that I cannot see is the love of divine mind, the love of spirit that is waiting for us to call it into action. Spirit or divine mind never forces its ideas upon us. It waits for us to plant the seed in the space that we have created, and then it can bring forth the full idea that we are looking for. The big idea that I want to share with you this morning, the one that got into the newspaper, is the idea of healing the past and creating a new future by making space for that love that lies waiting. Most of us have lives, and I put myself in this too, I do this often, have lives that are so crowded. I wrote a few things down, full of habits. Just habits that we do for no good reason, but that it's a habit. Routines, things, people, work, television, beliefs, whether they're true or not. We are crowding our lives with those things. And yet, if you really think about it, we're calling out for some space. I'm calling out for some space, some time, from time to time. All I want is some time. We had 10 people over for Thanksgiving, and I couldn't find the saucepan I wanted to save my life. I had so much junk in those closets, so many pots and pans, things like that. And later on the day, Colin came in and he said, "What are those frying pans doing in my shed?" Because I needed to make space so that I could find things. And it's interesting to me, I brought one of my little poetry books. When I was doing a lot of weddings, I used some of the material from Khalil Gibran on marriage. Oh, a little bit? Okay, thank you. And I used this probably in 75% of my weddings, as long as I knew what the bride and groom were looking for. And I won't read all of it, I'll just read a couple of little lines. And it's talking first of all about coming together as a couple. But then it says, "But let there be spaces in your togetherness, and let the winds of the heavens dance between you. Sing and dance together and be joyous, but let each of you be alone, even as the strings of a lute are alone, though they quiver together with the same music. And stand together, yet not too near together, for the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow." And he seems to be cautioning us to keep spaces for growth, even in our very close relationships. Things cannot grow well when they're cramped together and there is too much going on in our lives. Our lives don't seem to grow well and go well. Now, the thing that's been going on lately in most of the United States, I would say, is perhaps pain. I've seen and read and heard about more pain, discomfort, unhappiness with what's been going on in the world. And I want not to be unkind, but I want to say something very meaningful to you that is, I think, is meaningful. If you are still holding on to pain from all the things that have happened, you need a healing. You need a healing. It is time to let go. It is time to create for yourself a space where you can allow yourself to heal. What you are holding in consciousness today, what you are fretting about, what you are concerned about that is not right, or you don't think it's right anyway, or we don't think it's right. What you are holding in consciousness today is creating your tomorrows. It is not healing you if it is painful. There's an old saying, it does you no good whatsoever to sit on a nail and wail. The thing to do is to get off the nail. Get off the nail. You see, the space in which you are working doesn't choose for you what you will have in your life. It simply takes what you're talking about, complaining about, rejoicing about. It takes whatever that is and works on that for you. It works and creates for you more of whatever you are concentrating on. If you are concentrating on your pain, I beg you to get up off the nail, turn around, turn your back to the nail, look towards something completely different, something truly new, something truly better, and let your bottom heal itself. The master teacher Jesus said something that really concerned me when I first read it. He said, "To those that hath shall be given, and to those that hath not shall be taken away even that which they have." And I thought, boy, those guys need a union. You know. But what he was talking about, of course, was consciousness. A healthy, positive, happy, peaceful consciousness. If that's what you have, more of that will come to you, more of that will happen for you. If your life is full of unhappiness and complaining and hurts and old wounds, if that is what is in your consciousness, that is all that space can create for you. It will not make your choices for you. Jesus used a lot of agricultural quotes and stories so that the people of his day would understand what he was talking about. He liked to talk about the vines and planting and growing and doing all of that. And I have a wonderful story from my own life that really fits in with what I'm talking about this morning. When we lived in England, in one of our houses, we had a very, very long backyard. Our house was a kind of normal-sized house, but for reasons I don't understand, the road behind us was way behind us, and all of us had long, skinny backyards. The gentleman at the bottom of my yard had this much garden. I had children. He had a love of gardening. I had no time for gardening. So he approached me one day and he said, "I'd like to make a deal with you. Would you like to share some of your immense garden with me? I will grow things and share the produce with you." Wonderful. What more could I ask? So he worked and worked and worked. We put a little fence up to keep the kids and the dogs in, and out, I should say. And he worked, and then one day he came to the house and he said, "Would you like to come and see all that I've done?" Absolutely. So he took me down there. And everything was clean and beautiful. All the weeds and stuff were gone. It looked neat and clean. And there were furrows and mounds and all of those things. And he took me by the arm and he showed me around. And he said, "Now those are my cabbages. And those are my carrots. And that mound over there is where I'm going to be growing the dahlias." And I'm looking, and there's nothing there. Nothing. Just furrows and stuff like that. And I realized that he was doing what I would call a spiritual mind treatment. He had planted his seeds. Now he did not say, "Now over there are the seeds of this and that, and the seeds of this." He said, "Now those are my cabbages." He had already accepted the truth of the harvest that he had planted in the soil. And he knew that where he planted those seeds, those cabbages would come up. And those tomatoes would come up. Whatever you are constantly planting in the soil of your mind is coming up for you. If your life needs to be improved, I ask that you look at what you're planting. and let us begin the process of getting ready for a wonderful new year and start planting the things we really want to reap. What we need to do then is to just decide to carve out, if you like, a white space, a piece of white paper, anything you like that will work for you, a symbol for some white space. And in that white space, plant an idea for your future. Do you want better health? Do you want more loving relationships? Do you want to prosper? Do you want to find fulfilling work to do? What is it? Choose that and put that as a seed in the white space. Then your job is to keep the weeds out. Negative stuff comes up, out. Stamp it out. I'm referencing Jesus several times today. When he was out in the desert, I don't know if any of you know this story, the so-called the devil came to talk to him and tell him, you could do this, and you could do this, and you could get an army, and you could kill all these people, blah, 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 blah. And Jesus said, "Get thee behind me, Satan." Now, Satan has become Satan for us. Satan is almost spat when it is said. It is a word meaning negative ideas. Anything that you know will mess up what you're trying to do. If you're trying to be happy and peaceful and loving, and the fact that Aunt Mary never gave you back the money you owed her creeps in, get thee behind me. In fact, we used to have a time where religious scientists, when this went around the walls, the religious scientists were doing this all the time. Get thee behind me. We all knew they had something negative coming. What was it? But get thee behind me. Hold the space, weed free, for the possibility, for the potential, for the love that is lying there, waiting for you. Make room, leave time in your life for that white space. Make time for that white space. And then plant seeds just the way my gardener did. So how can we heal with the things that I put in the newspaper? I wrote them down so that I would be sure to complete the circle. It's one thing to say, I'm going to talk about this and this, and then talk about that, and then suddenly, oh dear, I didn't say what I meant to say. I always like to say what I meant to say, so to be sure this time, I wrote it down. How do we heal? With creativity, love, and trust. That's what I put in the paper. Much of our healing can come from the ability to turn away from the wound, trusting that it will die away from lack of attention. You don't need to do anything to those old wounds. Forgive if you can forgive. Forgetting is probably much more difficult. It's not necessary to forget, but it is necessary to stop giving it attention. Any time that it comes up, and it does nothing more for you than to make you feel righteous because you suffered and they didn't. Who's that healing? Certainly not healing you, and it's not healing them. So let it die from lack of attention. Creativity begins when we plant the seed of a different idea and trust that just as in nature, it will bring forth in kind, because the soil that it is planted in is love. When we carve out a space in our consciousness in which to grow a new and different idea, we have opened the doors of pure potential. That I call love in waiting, or divine mind. In this way, we shall have grown in consciousness and revealed another facet of our godness. Remember, we are born of God. There was nowhere else. You are born of God. Reveal another beautiful facet of your godness. What new shade of love and truth shall you share with the world tomorrow and tomorrow? What new shade of peacefulness and happiness and joy and grace shall you bring into your world? And then there's this from Goethe. The moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would otherwise not have occurred. Now, I'm not exactly sure what providence means. I mean, I know I've looked it up in the dictionary. For me, I like it better when I say providence. Providence happens for me when I commit myself, when I decide to make an idea, put an idea into motion or into my white space. All kinds of things happen. People turn up with something you need. Money comes from nowhere. That's exactly how the church in Roseburg got started. Providence. The idea was there, and the universe provided. So I would say to you, if you will give to your soul desires your good health, good life, good love. Give your good idea to your soul. Let it be taken into that white space. And let that white space so fill you with love and peace and joy that it becomes more than just providence. It becomes nothing more nor less than the pure, unadulterated love of God. And then, when you do that, you will be able to say, and I will be able to say to you, have a blessed and peaceful and wondrous Christmas, and a very, very happy New Year. And so it is.